A lot of rumors being floated around who's going where and who might be coming to Milwaukee. But I do know the Brewers have some question marks in that starting rotation and even the bullpen. We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How you doing again, everybody? Yeah, the Brewers do have some question marks in that rotation. There's some guys who I think some of you, and including me, have some question marks about. Plus they don't have a legitimate ace at the top of the rotation. We'll get to all that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. FanDuel brings you this episode of Locked On Brewers. You can start each season, a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place $5, a bet there, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. Got to win that $5 bet. You'll get $150 added to your account. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. My name is Chuck Freeman, longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin. Good to have you aboard here on Locked On Brewers. See, our YouTube audience has been growing even here in the off season, which is great to see because we got a lot of things to talk about here in the off season regarding our favorite team, the Milwaukee Brewers. And off the top, the starting rotation. Now, the Brewers do not have a legitimate ace at the top of the staff. They might say they do, but we know better. Freddie Peralta, we like Freddie, but let's face it, when Freddie goes out there, the Brewers have lost 2 in a row. How confident do you feel with Freddie going out there and being the streak stopper, that he was going to put the team back on the tracks and win a ball game for you? Yeah, there's been times when he was great. I mean, he had the 17 scoreless innings earlier this year and all that. And there's times when you're like, man, Freddie looks fantastic out there. And there's other times when, the balls go sailing over the fence. Not that I think he's a bad pitcher by any means. Don't get that right, or don't get that wrong. But what I think of with Freddie is he's a good number 3, maybe a number 2. But I think if you're going to be a championship caliber team, you have to have somebody on that rotation better than Freddie Peralta. Better than Freddie Peralta, and Frankie Montes isn't an ace either, but I would like to have him in the rotation. We'll talk more about him in a second here. But Freddie Peralta is right now, I would say, at best, a 2 starter, maybe a number 3. Tobias Myers had a great year this past year. I don't know how he's going to come back as an encore this year. You remember, and I don't want to associate him with Corbin Burns, but remember, Corbin looked great in 18, came back in 19, and was terrible. And eventually put it back on the train, back on the tracks there. But so Tobias Myers is going to be in this rotation, at least start. And we hope he continues to pitch like he did in his rookie year. He was great. My caveat in this is that Myers has been a journeyman pitcher in his career. And you wonder, I feel like those type of guys, not all, but those type of guys eventually sink back down to the norm. He's been, bounced around a little bit. He might have found it. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. The time will tell on that. But Tobias Myers will be in the starting rotation. But to say a top of the starting rotation type guy, and he pitched well in the playoff game. He did. But again, let's get him some more time to see what he does. I've been around this game a long time, and I've seen people, and me included, get excited about a guy after a year or a year and a half, and all of a sudden he falls off the cliff. I'm not being negative here. I'm just being really realistic about Tobias Myers. But Tobias, I think we all agree, we want at the front of the rotation. So Peralta, Myers. Next up, again, I've said many times, you can't count on Brandon Woodruff, but of course, if Brandon Woodruff becomes the Brandon Woodruff that we know of, he moves up ahead of all these guys because he's a legit ace. Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns, guys like that, legitimate aces. I think Brandon Woodruff is, but again, we're counting on a guy coming back from an injury. It would be great if he did, and you even got a pitcher who was better than Brandon Woodruff somehow, or had a better year than Woodruff. But Peralta, Myers, and a healthy Woodruff is a good place to start. It's a good place to start, provided that, like I said, Myers continues what he did this past year. Woodruff bounces back and is the old Brandon Woodruff, and Peralta keeps doing what he's doing and keeps on getting better. Now, who's going to fill in the rest of the holes on this team? Aaron Savale, we hear is a trade candidate. Brewers are on the hook for like $9.75 million with him. But if they have Peralta, Myers, and Woodruff, and they feel DL Hall and Ashby are starting candidates, Savale would not figure into that equation, right? So, Peralta, Myers, Woodruff, DL Hall. Well, DL Hall came back from the minors this year, and he was pretty good. He was pretty good. I believe he had one blow up in there, but he was pretty good. I like DL Hall. Again, the trade for Burns would I have liked a little bit more, but the two pieces they got back, Ortiz and of course DL Hall here, I just think I like to see a little bit more of DL Hall. But I was encouraged what I saw toward the end of the season, and same with Ashby. Encouraged what I saw of him toward the end of the season as well. I believe he had a blow up as well. But Ashby and DL Hall, really good. I think Savale is the odd man out. You wouldn't think a team that's got a guy under contract for $9 million would be the odd man out, but clearly by not having, and my light just went out, and there he is. This is back on again. Clearly by, what was I saying? Oh, by keeping Bryce Wilson. All right, that just tells you they're looking to get younger. By not keeping Colin Ray, they're looking to get younger. They have other options. I don't think they're going to get any starting pitching in the offseason. They're not. And the price, they're never going to pay that type of price. But Peralta, Myers, Woodruff, DL Hall, and Ashby, I think are likely your five. Unless they make a trade for somebody, who knows? I don't want to see Max Scherzer here. Not at all. If they fell into another starter by trading Devin Williams, well, we'll have to see on that. But through trade, through free agency, Frankie Montas. Now, the word on the street is that Frankie Montas, the ballpark figure for him would be 2 years, $24 million. I'd kick the tires on that for sure if I was the Brewers. But then again, how much are the Brewers willing to spend? They should go up to 160, like I said the other day, $160 million. No reason why they can't do that. The Cardinals are doing that. But I have a feeling the Brewers will only sign or make a deal for one guy in the offseason who's making some bank. And I don't know. 2 years, $24 million sounds okay for me with Montas. The Brewers were 8-3 in the games he did pitch here. I liked what he did. And I think if you got it for 2 years, $24 million, signed, sealed, and delivered right there, I'd put him in the rotation. Sure. Peralta, Myers, Woodruff, Hall, Ashby, and Montas fighting for spots. You have 6 guys there. It always ends up working out. Maybe put Ashby or DL Hall in the bullpen. Now, the bullpen, a lot of this all triggers on what happens with our guy, Devin Williams. And we'll get to that coming up next. Chuck Freeman here. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Locked On Brewers, FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Get ready to tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers, you bet $5, you get $150 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need to place your bets, especially live bets on the NFL. All in one place. Let's say, like Monday Night Football, you saw Kansas City down. You saw Mahomes down by a touchdown there. Well, if you get that hunch, like I did the previous night when Minnesota was down, you check out the latest stats on FanDuel. You view the live play-by-play because they have the action ahead of what you see on TV, probably by about 30 seconds. And you're able to place your bets. Go to FanDuel.com today. Join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel. official partner of the NFL. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. And we're partners as well, aren't we? Me and you guys, we're all Brewer fans. We're partners in that, trying to get our team past the first round of the playoffs. I used to say, get our team to a World Series. At this point, let's get by the first round of the playoffs, right? Right. I mean, every year we look great in the regular season. Oh, we do wonderful things, amazing things. This team can't be beat. People come after me on Twitter, say, oh, Chuck, let's wait till we get to October. I said, man, the way this team plays defense, Gold Glove winners, hitting in clutch spots, outsmarting teams, bullpen. How can you not like this team going far? And then by that first weekend of October, we're wondering what the heck happened. So we're trying to get this team out of the first round of the playoffs. Got to get them into the playoffs, first of all. That should never be taken for granted. But then after that, what can we do to get better with this team? The bullpen, I should say, to touch on that starting rotation real quick, do I feel 100% confident in that rotation right now? No. Peralta, Myers, Woodruff, DL Hall, and Ashby. Like I say, they lack a top of the order, top of the rotation stopper on this team. The bullpen, well, Devin Williams starts with him. I find it highly likely that he's going to be here. I don't see any way that Devin Williams is going to be on this team. Just like a year ago, didn't think Corbin Burns is going to be on the team. Don't think Devin is going to be on this team as well. Other guys, McGill, $2 million, of course. He is going to be the closer on this team. Unless something happens, God forbid, McGill is going to be the closer on this team. He's got closer stuff. He throws 100. What do you have? Like 2 blown saves. Trevor McGill is the closer on this team. Mears, a guy the Brewers are just in love with, that they got from Colorado. Just in love with. He was on the postseason roster. They love him. Jared Koenig. I love him. I love Jared Koenig. I love him. I want Jared Koenig in my bullpen. I love the great pickup. Great pickup. One of the reasons why the Brewers and Matt Arnold won Executive of the Year. Hobie Milner. I don't know what to think about Hobie. Don't know. He had a down year, in my opinion, this past year. Piamps. I have bright hopes. Had bright hopes. They're not gone for Piamps. I'm still dangling on like a guy trying to hold on to his girlfriend with Piamps, hoping that there's more there with Piamps. We'll see. Buskauskas, man, somehow the Brewer, this guy always finds his way in the 40-man no matter what. I hear about him talked a lot. There are certain guys that get talked a lot. Buskauskas, they love him. Somehow they do. They think, I don't know. He's always around. Somehow, he's going to be in the mix if he's healthy. Piamps. Now, a couple of other guys. I love Hudson. I want him to see a big part of this team. Hudson. Peguero. Losing my faith. Not that I had a tremendous amount of faith in Elvis, but Elvis, I don't know. I'm beginning to think we can have better options than Elvis Peguero. Uribe, got to see how he bounces back from the knee. I like Uribe. I love his stuff. I love his competitiveness. He needs to stay healthy, get that knee healthy, which it sounds like he's going to be all ready for spring training. See if he comes back and throws 100. Again, got to get the ball over the plate for Uribe. So the bullpen here, again, McGill, Mears, Koenig, Milner, Piamps, Buskauskas, Uribe, Peguero, Hudson. I think I've got everybody. I think I've named everybody off the top here. And again, bullpens, you don't know from year to year how good a bullpen is, how good of a bullpen is going to be one year, how it's going to be the next year. You just don't know with these guys. You don't know how bullpens are going to be. But I like to think that, this team has put together 2 years in a row now of a pretty solid bullpen, whether they had Devin in there or not. We'll see how it is for the upcoming season. And again, this whole bullpen could switch between now and spring training even. Matt Arnold, Executive of the Year, GM of the Year. I had thought Harry Dalton won that title back in 1978, but apparently this is the first time the Brewers front office has won GM of the Year. Didn't really get us anywhere, but a first-round playoffs loss. But he did put together a pretty good team through trade, Churio contract, trading Burns, making an attempt with Hoskins, Myers, Koenig, Hudson, getting Frankie Montes, and selecting Pat Murphy as his manager, who's going to be manager of the year. Usually that follows suit, right? If you have the executive of the year, shouldn't you think you have the manager of the year too on your team? Pat Murphy will be manager of the year. We'll soon know that news. Usually news like that gets dropped as soon as I'm done with the podcast. I could cut this podcast at like 10 o'clock at night. Somehow news will drop at, the Brewers have made a move. Oh, the Brewers have got Rhys Hoskins. Then you got to redo everything. You think you have everything ready to go, and you got to go back to the drawing table and redo the podcast. I've done that a few dozen times too. I think you got the podcast all done, and then some news drops out of the middle of nowhere. The Corbin Burns trade, another one. Speaking of Burns, they're looking at 7 years, $225 million out there. Not the worst. I thought maybe $300 million for Burns, but it sounds like, and that might not be exact, but some of the numbers I've seen thrown out there for Burns, 7 years, $225 million. Man, if the Brewers had some more cash, imagine going down that road for Burns. You got 2 players from Baltimore, and then a year later you get back Corbin Burns. That's pie in the sky, just like it is for Adames. Oh, Willie's not coming back. Oh, Willie. I think some of you are getting excited about the hometown discount. There's a few caveats to that, too. Willie's not coming back. Willie's not coming back in again. I don't want to give Willie a 6-year contract. He's going to be 30 next year. The tail end of that contract, 6 years, could be deathly for a franchise of the Milwaukee Brewers. I'd give him 3 or 4 years, but obviously Adames is going to want 6. And some bozo out there will pay him $6 million. I say bozo, some team with a lot of money that can afford, has no budget whatsoever, will afford to pay him 6 years at an astronomical rate. And by the end of those 6 years, probably by the end of 4, they're going to wonder what are they doing? I've seen it happen. But yeah, ain't no way, even under the hometown price, the hometown discount, will the Brewers give Adames 6 years. I'd have to consider now, I'd say Burns 7 years, $225 million. Even if the Brewers could do it, Burns would be 37 at the end of that deal. And, could have some injury list trips as well on that. Yeah. 7 years, $225 million. I thought it'd be more for that. Adames, speaking of him, hearing all sorts of rumors, the Dodgers, sounds like the Mets. I saw a report today. The Mets, David Stearns could be interested in him. Of course, Stearns got him in the trade with Tampa back in 2021. Stearns would be interested, according to reports, of getting him in New York and moving him to third base, and then move Vientos over to first base, where Pete Alonso played, because Pete's going to be a free agent. So move Vientos from third to first and put Adames over at third. Interesting. You'd have to convince Willie to play third base. I don't know how you'd feel about that. Honestly, don't. Willie's a team player. Willie probably believes he's a shortstop still at this point. But eventually down the road, Willie is going to have to move to third base. The time is just not now, I don't believe, for Adames. We come back. A couple of trade partners for Devin Williams. We'll get to that coming up next. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. And your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have time to go to the doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through HIMS, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Guys, you ever feel like you need a little boost? Well, it's time for you to stop worrying about your performance and get HIMS. HIMS, you can feel confident knowing you can get where you want to go. And whenever you're in the mood, HIMS is there for you. HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. HIMS provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra, Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. So start your free online visit today. Visit HIMS, HIMS.com/locked-on, HIMS.com/locked-on, and you'll get a personalized ED treatment and all the options that they have. But remember, it's HIMS.com/locked-on, HIMS.com/locked-on. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm losing my voice. Losing my voice the last couple of days. Probably it's the cold weather. Went golfing in cold weather the other day. Well, it wasn't really cold. It was like 61. Cold, well, warm for Wisconsin. Probably cold for those of you living in the warm weather states. Devin Williams. Who's interested? So the Blue Jays could be an interested trade partner. They have bullpen issues. Their bullpen stinks. The Dodgers and their revolving door in the bullpen, although they got by with what they got by this past year. But could the Dodgers be interested, be a trade partner? Or are the Dodgers just going to go out and buy people like they always do? Dodgers don't need a trade. They just go see somebody they like when he becomes a free agent. Then they buy him. So, but I heard the Blue Jays and Dodgers could be trade partners, but I'm skeptical about the Dodgers trading for anybody. Texas could be a potential trade partner. The Phillies are the number one spot right now. All indications show that the Phillies really want Devin Williams. Not only do their fans want Devin Williams, but the Phillies are apparently really, really interested in. What do you got? We talked about that trade possibility. Keep it coming. It's good to hold the cards, isn't it? Like Devin Williams, the Brewers have with Devin Williams, and have options because, like I said, if Devin leaves, if he's traded, you got options. Corbin Burns, when he left, you didn't have a number one ace. You didn't have a star. You didn't have an ace. You were forced to elevate Peralta up from 3 to 1 because Woodruff was hurt. You didn't have an ace. Woodruff was an injured player last year. He was coming off an injury, so he was not considered an ace, the ace of the staff, if he was even going to pitch. But at least with the bullpen and the closer's role, he got McGill as a safety backup. Pretty good option to have. But what's going to happen here? We're going to talk about the Dodgers. We're going to talk about the Rangers. We're going to talk about the Phillies being the number one contender. He'll get traded to somebody we had no clue about and didn't see coming, like we saw with Burns going to the Orioles and now becoming a free agent. How'd that work out for you, Baltimore? We like your two players. That's going to do it. My name is Chuck Freeman. This is Locked On Brewers. You get us on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. We are there. We're the number one Brewers podcast on the internet because of you great Brewer fans. Please go to our growing YouTube page, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That'll alert you every time we drop an episode on Locked On Brewers, and making us your first listen to every day. For your second listen to, go to my man Sully, Locked On MLB. He's got all the baseball offseason news all season long on Locked On MLB. Until tomorrow, Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.